Dani had always believed that becoming a mother would be the happiest chapter of her life. She imagined late-night feedings, tiny clothes folded neatly in drawers, and the soft sound of her baby breathing beside her. What she never imagined was standing outside her own front door at 2 a.m, holding her newborn daughter against her chest, while her own mother told her she was no longer welcome inside. The rain had started about 20 minutes earlier, but Dani barely noticed it. Her attention was completely focused on the tiny bundle wrapped in a pale pink blanket in her arms. Her daughter Lily was only 6 weeks old, and she had finally fallen asleep after nearly an hour of crying. Dani was exhausted. Her hair was tied into a messy bun, her eyes were swollen from lack of sleep, and she was still wearing the loose gray sweatshirt she had practically lived in since giving birth. But none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was the fact that she was standing on the sidewalk in front of the house she had spent years working to build. Her house, her property, her home, and her mother had just ordered her to leave it. "Dani, I am not going to argue with you all night," her mother. Dani barely slept that night. She ended up staying in a small guest room at her best friend Claire's apartment, with Lily sleeping beside her in a portable bassinet that Claire had pulled from a closet. Every few hours, Dani woke up to feed her daughter. But each time she opened her eyes, the events of the previous night came rushing back. Her mother had changed the locks. Her mother had ordered her out. Her father had secretly been discharged from the hospital. And now an attorney was telling her that there were documents concerning the house she needed to see immediately. By 6 a.m, Dani was wide awake. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. There were 3 messages from Michael Reeves, the attorney who had contacted her. The first said that he wanted to meet her privately. The second asked her not to discuss the matter with her mother. The third simply said, "Dani, please trust your father on this." That last message frightened her more than anything else. Her father had always been the quiet one in the family. Unlike Marlene, he rarely raised his voice. He wasn't controlling, and he didn't interfere in Dani's decisions. If anything, he had encouraged her independence. When Dani was 17, he had helped her open her first savings account. When she was 21, he had encouraged her to take a job in another state. When she was 23, he had stood beside her when she signed the papers for her first home. Her mother had complained about the house from the beginning. Too expensive, too far from her, too much responsibility. But her father had simply smiled. "You bought it with your own money," he had told Dani. "That makes it yours." Or at least that's what Dani had believed. Now she wasn't so sure. At 7:30, Claire walked into the room carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You look terrible," she said. Dani gave her a tired smile. "Thanks. You know what I mean." "I know." Claire handed her the coffee. "Did you call your dad?" "No." "Why not?" "Mom told me not to." Claire stared at her. "Since when do you listen to your mother?" Dani sighed. "I don't know." Claire sat beside her. "Dani, something is seriously wrong." "I know. Are you sure you..." Add. Dani read her mother's message 3 times before putting the phone down. She didn't respond. Not because she didn't have anything to say, but because Michael had warned her that every message could become evidence. For years, Dani had been the daughter who tried to keep peace. Whenever Marlene became angry, Dani apologized. Whenever her mother made unreasonable demands, Dani gave in. Whenever a family argument started, Dani was usually the one who ended it by saying, "Fine, I'll do it your way." But that version of Dani had disappeared the moment her mother had locked her out of her own home with a 6-week-old baby in her arms. Now Dani understood that her mother wasn't simply angry with her. She was fighting for control of something much bigger than a house. Claire drove them back toward Willow Creek Drive. Lily was asleep in her car seat, completely unaware of the storm developing around her. Dani kept staring through the passenger window at the familiar streets. She had driven down this road thousands of times. She knew every turn, every stop sign, every tree that changed color in the fall. 6 years earlier, she had driven down the same street with the keys to her new home sitting in her lap. She remembered how proud she had felt. She had been 23 years old, exhausted from working 2 jobs, but she had finally accomplished something no one in her family expected her to do. She had bought a home entirely in her own name. Now, as Claire turned onto Willow Creek Drive, Dani felt like she was approaching a crime scene. Her house appeared at the end of the street. The porch light was on. Dani immediately noticed something different. Her mother's SUV was parked in the driveway, but there was another vehicle behind it, a black sedan. Dani leaned forward. Who is that? Claire slowed down. I don't know. Dani's stomach tightened. That's not my dad's car. Dani stood frozen in the doorway of her father's hospital room. She had spent the entire drive there preparing herself for difficult conversations about the house, the trust, and the guardianship petition. She had expected her father to explain the money, the property, and the strange documents that her mother had apparently used against her. But she had not expected him to look at her as if she had just uncovered the one secret he had spent his entire life trying to protect. Claire stood quietly behind Dani, sensing that whatever happened next was far bigger than a family argument. Who is my mother really? Dani asked. Her father's face became pale. Dani, you shouldn't have received that message. That's not an answer. I know. Then answer me. Her father looked down at his hands. You're not supposed to know this yet. Yet? Dani's voice rose. You've known something my entire life, and you were planning to tell me later? Dani, my mother just threw me out of my house with my newborn daughter. She's trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. She's trying to take control of my finances. And now someone is telling me she changed her name before she met you? Her father closed his eyes. Who sent you the message? I don't know. Did you respond? No. Good. Dad, stop telling me what to do and tell me the truth. Her father's eyes filled with tears. Dani immediately felt guilty. She had never spoken to him like that, but she couldn't stop. Not anymore. Her father took a deep breath. Your mother's real name is Marlene Whitmore. Dani frowned. That is her name. No. Her father looked at her. That's the name she chose. Dani felt a chill move through her. What was her real name? Her father hesitated. Margaret Bell. Dani stared. Dani had never seen her father look so frightened. Not when he had been diagnosed with heart problems, not when he had suffered the stroke, not even when he learned that Marlene had filed a petition to take control of Dani's finances. But now, as he stared at the message on Dani's phone, his entire expression changed. His eyes fixed on the words as if they had dragged a memory out of the past that he had spent decades trying to bury. Dani stood in front of him, waiting for an answer. She had learned too much in the last 48 hours to accept another lie. She had discovered the trust, the hidden fortune, the forged agreement, her mother's plan to have her declared incompetent, and the fact that Marlene had been working with Robert against her. Now, someone was telling her that even her grandmother was part of the secret. Who sent this? Her father asked. I don't know. Did you respond? No. Good. Dad, I'm tired of hearing that word. What word? Good. Her father looked confused. Every time I ask you something, you say good, as if I'm a child who needs to be protected. Dani, no. Her voice cracked. I am not a child anymore. Dani barely slept that night. The phone call from Thomas Bell kept replaying in her mind. $8 million. Her mother had allegedly moved $8 million from the trust, and Thomas claimed he had helped her do it. Now he was saying that he could prove everything. But there was something about his voice that bothered Dani. He sounded nervous, almost frightened, but not guilty. He had also said he was being watched by Robert. That meant Dani's uncle was involved far more deeply than she had imagined. By midnight, Dani had stopped trying to sleep. She sat beside Lily's crib, watching her daughter breathe, and thought about everything that had happened. Less than 2 days earlier, she had been a tired new mother worried about diapers, feeding schedules, and getting enough sleep. Now she was involved in a multi-million-dollar legal battle with her own family. Her mother wanted guardianship. Her uncle wanted the trust. Someone had forged her signature. Millions had been transferred without her knowledge. And somewhere in the middle of it all was a man who claimed to have helped her mother hide the money. At 7 the next morning, Dani received a message from Thomas. "Meet me at 10 a.m. at the Riverside Diner. Come alone. Do not bring your attorneys." Dani immediately showed the message to Claire. "Absolutely not," Claire said. Dani looked at her. "Why?" "Because this guy just admitted he helped your mother move $8 million. "Exactly. That doesn't mean he's trustworthy." "I know." "Then why are you going?" Dani stared at the message. "Because he might be the only person who knows where the money went." Claire crossed her arms. "You can tell your attorney. And if he disappears, then we let the lawyers handle it." "Claire, Dani drove toward the bank, with Claire following closely behind her. Thomas stayed several car lengths back, exactly as they had planned. The black SUV was nowhere in sight, but Dani couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them. She kept checking the rearview mirror, expecting to see the vehicle appear again. Nothing. The road ahead looked normal. People were going to work. Cars moved through the morning traffic. A mother pushed a stroller along the sidewalk. A delivery truck blocked one lane. Everything looked completely ordinary. Yet Dani knew her life was anything but ordinary now. She had spent years believing that the biggest problem she would ever face was managing the responsibilities of being an adult. She had never imagined that her own mother would throw her out of her home with a newborn baby, attempt to take control of her finances, and secretly plan to have her declared mentally incompetent. She had never imagined that her uncle would help her, and she certainly never imagined that her grandfather had left behind a secret that could change everything. As Dani pulled into the bank's parking lot, Michael's car arrived from another direction. He stepped out carrying a leather briefcase. He immediately walked toward Dani. "Where's Thomas?" Dani pointed behind her. "He's parking." Michael looked around. "Did anyone follow you?" "Not that I saw." Michael's expression remained serious. "That's not an answer." Dani sighed. "There was a black SUV." Michael's eyes narrowed. "What happened?" "It followed Thomas." "How do you know?" "He recognized it." Michael looked toward the street. "Did you get the license plate?" "No." "Dani." "Michael, we didn't have time." "Okay." He took a deep breath. "Listen to me. We go inside. We access the safe deposit box. We document everything. Then we leave." Dani nodded. "Agreed. No confrontations." "Agreed. No accusations." "Agreed. And if your mother shows up?" Dani looked at him. "Then we let her talk." Michael smiled slightly. "Good." Dani frowned. "Don't say that." He laughed quietly. "Sorry." Dani looked down at Lily, who was sleeping peacefully in her car seat. She smiled. "At least one person in this family is sleeping peacefully." Claire laughed. "Give her time. She'll wake up the second we enter the vault." Dani smiled. "For the first time in days." Dani stood completely still. For several seconds, she couldn't understand what her father had just said. The words were simple, but her mind refused to accept them. "I took the money." Her father had said it. Her own father. The man she had trusted more than anyone. The man who had always told her he wanted to protect her. The man who had warned her about her mother. The man who had sat beside her in the hospital and watched her cry. He had taken the money. Dani looked at Marlene. Her mother was standing silently near the bank entrance, watching the entire scene unfold. Then Dani looked back at her father. "You took the $8 million?" Her father nodded. Dani's voice became almost a whisper. "Why?" Her father looked down. "Because I was trying to save you." Dani felt something break inside her. "Save me?" "Yes." "You took $8 million from my trust to save me?" "It wasn't like that." "Then explain it." Her father took a step toward her. Dani stepped backward. "Don't." He stopped. Dani's eyes filled with tears. "Don't come near me." Dani, you lied to me. I know. You let me believe my mother stole my money. I never said that. You didn't have to. Dani pointed